Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to our virtual smart spaces session today, talking all about PropTech, broadband, and the future of multifamily living. So excited to host you all today for this conversation, for this session. I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research with Parks Associates, and I'm so pleased to be joined by Kristen Hannock, who's our Director of Research, specializing in broadband technologies and multifamily property tech. Hi, Kristen. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much, Jennifer, and hello everyone in the audience.
We are so excited to be joining you today and to have you join us as we are continuing our conversation that we really hold all year long about what's happening in prop tech, what's happening in the multifamily space, how are IoT and broadband, Wi-Fi offerings really changing up what it means to own, to invest in, to manage properties, and to really serve residents with fantastic experiences and kind of change how you think about property management and resident support. We are very excited that we are talking today and then coming up on our in-person Smart Spaces event of the year, which we're going to do a little bit of a preview of today from September 16th and 17th in Dallas. In addition to the preview that I'm going to get into in just a second of that event, Kristen and I are going to be talking about some of the latest trends that we're seeing in the multifamily market from really the first half of the year through today. We did some testing on the resident outlook on the economy and what that means for how they're thinking about spending and how they're thinking about their housing costs. We're going to be talking a little bit about some real demand we're seeing for security and video surveillance. Trends and amenity fees, always an interesting topic, and also the market for energy efficiency. Also very excited that today we are going to be announcing the winners of our Property Innovation Awards. So this is the first annual, first time that we are really recognizing properties from across the United States that are deploying property technologies and really seeing interesting results with them. So thank you all to those many of you who nominated a property that you own, that you manage, or perhaps that you partner with from a technology vendor perspective. We had great fun reviewing those, and it was really actually difficult and interesting process. So excited to announce the Innovation Award and we'll be recognizing them at Smart Spaces in September. We'll then pause for some analyst Q&A. We welcome you to pop any questions that you have into the chat for us. I believe there's actually there's a chat and there's a questions tab. I think you can use either. I'll look for them in either, but questions is a logical place to pop a question in. And then we're going to close off with a sneak peek of some research that we have coming out focused specifically on senior living. And the market for a lot of you actually I know are really looking at senior properties, whether they be just 55 plus communities or communities that provide a higher level of acute care, and how the technologies that you're offering in traditional multifamily, can really have an impact in senior as well. So with that, let's jump into our Smart Spaces preview. So very excited to come back to Dallas, bringing in all sorts of companies that are really leading in this space to talk together about what they're seeing in the market, what are they struggling with, what are the challenges that we can kind of together work through as an industry, where is the opportunity, really bridging the gap between the properties as well as the vendors, and really having the decision makers and strategy folks at the table to share. And so we're so thankful for our many sponsors who really stepped up to support the event this year. Thank you so much to ADT, to Cox Communities, NICE, Vantiva. Thank you to SmartRent, Kwikset, Skybell, ROCIQ, MyQ LiftMaster, Connected Property Solutions, Rently. Thank you to Calix, to 3DI, Johnson Controls, Cambium Networks, Nomadics Assa Abloy, 11 Software, Point Central, Groove, RealPage, Dormicaba, and Zentra. We are so grateful for your support. We're so excited to be seeing you in Dallas in just a few weeks, really, and can't wait to hear from you what you're seeing in the space. Also, we have some really fantastic keynotes that we're going to be hearing from that provide a pretty unique and kind of diverse perspective of what they're seeing, especially from the property side, from the management side, from the great platform vendors. We have speakers from Bradford, from our Living, from Greystar, from Asset Living, and from RealPage, who are going to be really sharing their thought leadership, their experiences, and helping us really think through the next stage of property tech deployments, valuation, and really where that return on investment is strongest. And a quick look at the full agenda. So in addition to those great keynotes that we have lined up, we're going to be really taking a tour around the property technology space. We'll start off sharing research around how we're seeing the market grow and what's driving that growth. And then we're always, as we love to do, starting at the connectivity level, because the broadband coming into the property, the network around the property, in unit and around the property, really is the foundation for all of the other great tech that gets built on top. So that's a fantastic place to start, but we're also going to be talking about hot topics like integration and centralization and the role of platforms. We're going to be talking about AI and the impact on multifamily specifically in several different places. We're going to be talking, of course, about where the money's at. What is the ROI for property tech that you're seeing right now? Are there some technology deployments that are really paying off and others that need to work a little bit to really justify that cost? On day 2, which is Wednesday, September 17th, we'll be talking also about the impact on management and staff and maintenance. We know that some of the keys to a successful deployment is getting those folks on board and also really making their lives easier and making them more efficient. And that's part of the value here. We'll be talking about access control. We'll be learning lessons from the hospitality sector. That's a little ahead of the multifamily sector and how they use technology today, particularly for the guest experience, but also for operations. So I'm excited to learn from that. And we'll be talking about senior and assisted living, energy management, and finally wrapping up with a point of view really from real estate investment perspective and thinking about long-term growth. So very excited for all of these conversations and how much I learned from you all over the 2 days that we spent together at Smart Spaces. So if you haven't already registered, here is a QR code to get you there. We're at the Hall Arts Hotel in Dallas, which is in a really cool kind of neighborhood in uptown Dallas and sort of the arts district. So that'll be really fun. And my colleague Nick tells me that the hotel block closes this week, I think. Maybe he can put that in the chat if I got that wrong. So make sure that you get your hotel confirmed because that block is closing. So with that, if you have any questions about Smart Spaces, you can pop those in the chat or the questions as well. So with that, I'd love to share a little bit about what Kristen and I and us at Parks are seeing in the market. As I mentioned, we are going to talk a little bit about the resident outlook on the economy. And I'll start here, and then Kristen, I'll kick it over to you on property security and demand for video surveillance and really property security. The economic outlook has been really interesting to follow this year. A lot of concern really across not just multifamily, but really all the markets that we cover. Little uncertainty about the change in administrations, a lot of change in regulatory requirements, a lot of change in what's happening at the regulatory bodies. But also, of course, some uncertainty around tariffs and what that's going to do to technology costs and to building material costs and other things that really impact almost every market that we cover. And so we wanted to get consumers' perspective on this to understand what they're thinking about the state of the U.S. economy. So in our Q2 survey, which fielded in June and into July a little bit this year, so really just about 6 weeks ago, we were pulling this data. We asked about consumers' confidence in the economy right now. Concerned to confident. Overall, 50% of U.S. internet households said that they are concerned about the economy right now. 33% rating confident or very confident. That story does split very strongly among income lines. Those with higher household incomes are much more likely to say that they're confident in the economy. Those with lower household incomes, much more likely to say that they're deeply concerned. And this does shake out also when you look at place of residence. So if you're a condo owner, if you live in a single family house, a little more likely to be confident in the economy. Those living in an apartment are concerned, right? So consumers are in a mindset right now of thinking about their spending, wondering what's happening in the economy, and feeling a little bit of that uncertainty. So we said, well, what is this, your outlook on the market right now doing in terms of your impact on certain things that you might buy or you might spend on? And so one of the things that we asked about was whether or not you might buy especially with the tariffs, are you considering speeding up some purchasing plans, perhaps getting ahead of price increases, especially for high dollar purchases like a car or a vehicle, or perhaps are you going to delay spending because you are worried about that, the dollar amount or your household income, et cetera. We do have about 1/5 of all U.S. internet households saying that they are delaying buying a house or a condo right now. 70% saying no impact to plans. Very strong impact on car or vehicle, with people delaying buying that purchase as much as possible. But again, about 1/5 saying that they're delaying a housing purchase. And this does also, again, have greater or less impact depending on where you live. So looking across the different type of residences and residents, those who are renting, whether it's a single family renter or an apartment renter, are much more likely, about 1/3 of each of those groups, saying that they are delaying purchasing a home or a condo. Much less impact to condo owners and single family homeowners. And if you see some of the other metrics out there on resident turnover, on consumers' outlook on the housing market, this really jives with some of those metrics that we're seeing too. Consumers are staying put. Those who are in an apartment, those that are renting a single family home, largely staying put. You've got very still high interest rates, making that mortgage perhaps feel unattainable, and that purchase of a home feel unattainable for many. And overall, when we're looking at, when we ask specifically, okay, well, when you think about the how you feel about the economy and the market right now, and what you plan to spend on and don't plan to spend on, what is really impacting that? And the top two really are inflation generally. Everything feels like it's costing a little more, and also concern around tariffs. At number 5, we get to housing costs. And actually at the bottom, we have, people's employment situation, or the number of hours that they're able to work, or their pay situation. But this does vary depending on your age and your income. So those younger consumers, those younger residents that you might have at your property, are far more likely to rate housing costs as really impacting their overall spending. 18 to 24-year-olds put it number 2, and even with tariffs right up there after inflation. They're also much more likely, these younger residents, these younger consumers, to say that their employment situation and their pay are major factors influencing their spending as well. So what does that mean when I think about kind of interpreting that into property decision makers, property management, and what you're thinking about? Again, tenant turnover is down. That can be good, especially if you've got the right tenants and you want to keep them, of course. Don't want to have those vacant units. Also, this indicates that it's likely to stay down. So we're not seeing signals that turnover rate is likely to increase. People are largely staying put. We do see that housing costs and sort of uncertain job and pay environment, especially for those younger residents, are kind of limiting overall spending for apartment residents. And so we think that's really a call for properties and property management to be a partner with your residents. There are especially when we think about the role of technology at properties. Sometimes there's not so much you can do on rent. However, there are certain technologies that we know that you're deploying or evaluating that actually can save your residents money. So when we look at our data set, pretty consistently, the prices that consumers who are on a bulk internet arrangement are paying for internet is less than those who are paying for a retail uh, internet plan. And so bulk internet tends to be better value, less cost than retail internet. Also, energy management. So for those properties where your residents are footing their own energy bill, smart thermostat deployments are a way to help them, be a partner with them in bringing down some of those energy management costs. So your consumers are in a mindset of a little bit of concern about the economy, a little bit of spending pullback. And so how can you actually be a partner with them as opposed to just a cost center in their lives where they're thinking about that cost of rent and that housing cost and how to kind of keep things together. Okay, so with that, Kristen, I would love to kick it over to you to share a little bit about what you're seeing in the demand for property security and video surveillance specifically.
Thanks so much, Jennifer, and certainly very happy to kind of go over some of the research that we've done. So I'm about to share some of the key highlights from a recent research we did, really looking at apartment renters in particular, as well as their thoughts around safety and security. We have identified safety and security overall as one of the key trends this year, and especially one of the top amenities that renters are looking for when it comes to their next home. So if we were to take a look at the following charts, we can see, oh, yes, before I move on, so this is a link to our research. You can scan it if you would like to get more information. So yes, one of the key findings that we have from this research is that apartment residents overall tend to feel somewhat less safe than residents of other types of homes. When we look at satisfaction with the safety and security of their home or neighborhood, they are less likely to say that they're satisfied than residents in any of these other types of homes. When we ask them about as well their concerns with the safety and security of their communities, they are more likely to say that they are concerned as compared to anyone else within these different types of properties. So overall, apartment residents less likely to feel safe in their homes, more likely to feel concerned. We saw that there is, as a result, a higher demand for some of the amenities that really aim at improving this sense of safety and security in one's own home. We have seen that there has been a large impact on the Net Promoter Score among renters when some of these solutions are deployed. Sorry, a little bit of a lag with the deck, so please bear with us. One of the interesting things that we found is that as you add more and more of these solutions on, Net Promoter Scores go higher and higher. The overall average Net Promoter Score for an apartment, so NPS, a measure of satisfaction, willingness to recommend a product or service, that for apartment residents has been relatively negative, so negative 25. It means that there are quite a few more folks warning people away from properties than actually recommending a property. But as you layer on some of these additional security measures, we see that the Net Promoter Score goes more and more positive, starting at negative 50 for those properties that actually have none of these, and then going all the way up to positive 20 when they have 4 or more of these types of solutions. And then you can see on the chart on the left some of the specific impacts of some certain solutions that we've tested. So gated communities, of course, more common, pretty significant improvement in Net Promoter Scores, bright outdoor lighting, very significant security cameras. And then when we get up to some of the less common solutions, including access control, an even more significant jump. So certainly a lot of different things that properties can offer as amenities in order to increase resident satisfaction, feeling of safety and security. If we were to go to the next slide, yes. When we are looking at the types of features that residents are saying that they're actually looking for inside of their next home, looking specifically at some of the security measures, we see a lot of interest in demand for things like bright outdoor lighting, especially lighting that is maybe more automatic, so comes on when it is especially needed. Security cameras outside or in the halls. We've seen a lot of advancement, I think, over the last few years when it comes to AI-enabled security solutions. So being able to use AI to better evaluate what is going on in different videos, even on a live basis. Some of the solutions nowadays will actually identify things like an incident that is occurring and allow somebody who is maybe watching from a call center to directly intervene, call in folks who are needed. So a lot of very big improvements there. Interest as well in this video doorbell concept. And that is one of the, I think, top devices we've seen in the smart home for single family homes as well. So certainly a lot of very interesting things that can be done. Something else that I thought was very much of interest, especially to you, the audience, when we look overall at the amenities that residents are interested in when it comes to their next home, the safety, security amenities are ranked just behind having good insulation and soundproofing and above covered parking. So they occupy, so covered parking is around number 5 or so. And of course, good insulation is number 1. So they occupy the second, third, and fourth spots in terms of desirability for tested amenities. So very, very good findings there. Um, so we had, so I mentioned that this, the above research came from a deliverable that we published a little bit earlier this year. We have also this complimentary white paper that you're able to access online free of charge, published in partnership with Quicksand. So if you're looking for a few additional findings around the subject of access control, especially retrofitting access control, there's a good spot to go to.
Yeah, fantastic. It's pretty incredible when you talk about technology amenities now being on par almost with soundproofing and above covered parking, right? Some things that take major investments, especially on the parking side, and traditionally really separate properties, from each other, different property classes, and now tech amenities being right up there.
Yes, it's certainly a huge, huge demand. But talking about amenities, if you could maybe let us know a little bit about some of the research and amenity fees, I think the audience would love that.
Sure. So okay, so when we're thinking about property technology investments, I mean, we hear you guys, you're asking us a lot often about amenity fees. We know that's a big topic in the market. Prop tech investments, like all investments, require funding, initial funding as well as ongoing maintenance, software as a service fees, hardware replacement costs, right? And properties use various funding and financing mechanisms for their tech amenities, sometimes falling under multiple umbrellas, both a resident amenity as well as a cost savings and an operational tool. And the way that these, financing mechanisms are structured also can depend on the age of the property, the hold length, the owner type, the market segment being targeted. For instance, in new construction, it can be really helpful to line item tech investments, out in the build budget. There's some tax advantages that you might be able to take, that you might be able to benefit from in doing that. But then you've got this ongoing budget, and ongoing maintenance and service costs might be brought into the operating budget. And that is the thing that makes, tech deployments different than, say, upgraded countertops or covered parking or great insulation. They require both this initial investment as well as an ongoing budgeting. But also tech investments, provide a source of ongoing value, and amenity fees can play a big role there, not only to recover costs of that investment, but then actually drive incremental revenue, improve the NOI, even drive up asset valuations. So one thing that we found recently that was really interesting, we surveyed consumers, we surveyed multifamily residents in the US and found today, about 14% of US apartment residents report paying an amenity fee for technology today. That rises to about 21% of condo owners paying a fee, a technology fee of some sort to their HOA. And what we found and this may include a variety of things, right? This may absolutely include internet service, managed Wi-Fi, or some sort of bulk arrangement. It may include internet service, as well as modern access control, as well as maybe smart thermostats or smart door locks or camera even, right? So there's a variety of different things in the packages. But what we found is really incredible is that residents overwhelmingly feel that the price they pay for the tech amenity fees is worth the cost. We've got 83% of apartment residents and 91% of condo owners who pay these fees feel that they are worth it, which is really incredible because nobody likes to pay fees, right? Like, what's the last fee that you paid that you're like, I'm happy I'm paying this fee? It's really rare. And so this really does show the value that's being provided, particularly I think when that internet is captured in there, which is common. What's also interesting is that the other big impact we saw was on how residents perceived their property changed related to whether or not they were paying tech amenity fees. So a higher percentage of residents who pay amenity fees report that they're satisfied with their property provided smart home devices and services than those who have property provided devices and services, but they're not paying an additional tech amenity fee. So it might be rolled into the rent, for instance. And what that's telling me is that charging for the amenities separately, which may not be possible in certain states or municipalities, depending on local rules, but actually charging for the amenities separately may better communicate their value. It's really calling attention to that perk that residents are receiving. So that was really, really interesting finding. Now, the actual fee amount, of course, varies by market. The average technology amenity fee paid by renters totals $75 per month or $80 per month for condo owners nationally. But you can see that, the figures vary. We've got $100 on average by New York City residents that have a tech amenity fee, about $96, a little lower in DFW and higher in Los Angeles. And of course, this makes sense in real estate and multifamily housing. Each market is unique. Different metro areas are going to have different wants and needs when it comes to amenities, and you've got different rules and regulations and building codes and weather and climate and energy insurance costs, right? So everything's going to vary. But we encourage owners and operators to really try and understand the specific needs and preferences of your target demographic and the local market conditions when setting rates. But overall, this is actually a very positive research finding for what's happening in tech amenity fees. And again, this was conducted this year, and so right alongside that research, I showed earlier that apartment residents are very value conscious right now and don't have a ton of confidence in the economy, and limiting their spending, and yet still finding tech amenity fees to be worth their value. If you're interested in reading more of that research, that's also available complimentary through a white paper that we published with Groove. So great to work with Groove on that paper, and you can see some more of that research through this QR code. Okay, last big topic before we get into our announcements of the property award winners. We're going to talk a little bit about energy efficiency, which is kind of having an interesting year in the smart energy space. So Kristen, tell us what you're seeing there.
Sure, and thank you so much, Jennifer. So this does, I'd say, kind of tie back to our earlier conversation, which was around cost consciousness. The cost of energy has been increasing quite a bit in certain metro areas, partially driven by increased demand for energy by data centers and just the general load, I would say, on air conditioning. So the renters are feeling a lot of this burden where they are paying quite a bit more than maybe they used to in prior years. A lot of owners and operators are similarly experiencing certain challenges as their utility costs, of course, do increase. We see that energy costs are really one of the key areas that multifamily owners and operators can actually address using technology and have some very good outcomes. So they're really key to cost containment. Um, the different research that we've done, talking to leaders in this space, multifamily owners and operators can very commonly save up to 30% annually by adopting smarter energy practices, smarter energy strategies, with smart thermostats, of course, being part of that. So a very significant cost savings there, a very significant reduction in energy consumption, also improving, I would say, the overall value to residents. Oftentimes, properties are actually able to communicate this as an amenity to residents, and I'd say better compete with the neighbor down the street. If we were to go to the next slide, yes, here are some recent data points that we pulled from our ongoing energy research, looking at the energy attitudes among multifamily residents when it comes to energy costs. Nearly half of multifamily residents, so including apartment renters as well as condo owners, are looking to actively reduce their energy use, oftentimes by actually dialing the thermostat to a different setting. Given the weather, of course, in summer, bump up the temperature, in winter, kind of cut it down a little bit. There's also a very significant additional percentage, nearly 40%, that wants to reduce their usage, but they don't have the time or the knowledge. Generationally, there are some very interesting trends here. Older consumers are more likely to actually actively reduce their energy use. They're more likely to say that they know how. Younger consumers are more likely to fall into this bucket down here of wanting to reduce but lacking the time and knowledge. So many of them, they care very much about how much they're paying. They may be earning less than older folks, more likely to live in an apartment, but they don't necessarily know how to lower that energy bill. And they're really looking for their properties to guide them in how to do this. So I'd say a lot of very good opportunity there. If we were to go to the next slide, we have some findings as well from our studies of MDU owners and operators. So including some survey data that we have gotten in the past, our ongoing studies, as well as findings we've had from executive interviews with companies that have actually deployed smart thermostats really throughout both their properties and across the footprints. We have found that owners and operators have had a reduction of around 18 to 19% in their energy and water costs after deploying a smart thermostat solution. So out of that 30% figure I gave earlier, about 2/3 of that can be attributed to smart thermostats. So some very good findings. They had previously, before some of these real results came back, expected returns of about 9% to 12%. So the actual results quite a bit better than they had previously expected. Um, Cost savings for owners and operators. Well, most of this cost saving is around the vacant period. So when a unit is maybe sitting empty between residents, as well as the energy being consumed in public areas. We found that another significant driver of cost savings is actually disaster prevention. So think about apartments that are in areas that may experience hard freezes, especially areas where there may be plumbing running outside the walls or alongside the walls. So when there is that hard freeze, oftentimes you do need to maintain a warm, consistent temperature inside the actual unit, or else you risk the pipes also freezing, potentially bursting, potentially causing an awful lot of water damage. So hundreds of thousands of dollars across a portfolio per year. So certainly a lot of opportunity to save there as well. So yes, we did publish another white paper this time in partnership with Smart Rent, taking a look at some of the ways that owners and operators can use smart energy savings to improve their property value and improve overall resident satisfaction. So it's certainly worth a read.
Yeah, and so interesting, Kristen, when you're talking about the water losses, especially pipe freezing, we think about that oftentimes associated with smart water technology, leak detectors, and then even more important, the shutoff valves and that ability to actually control and shut off that water. But what you're talking about is really even just climate control, that investment in the building technology to make sure that those units are warm enough to keep the pipes warm enough, kind of doing double duty there.
Yes, so certainly when a unit is sitting empty, you can send maybe someone on maintenance out to check and make sure that the unit has a sufficient temperature to prevent the pipes from freezing. But if a resident is maybe away visiting their family, possibly over Christmas holidays, they might be gone for a week or 2 weeks, and nobody's in the unit, they might have cut off the heat, and who really knows what's going to happen to the pipes in that amount of time. So having something there to make sure that the temperature will at least prevent some of these incidents can really help.
Okay, fantastic. And I think actually at Smart Spaces, we have a fireside chat with Smart Rent specifically talking about how you can use AI to understand some benchmarking and some reporting around energy efficiency and kind of building performance. So I'm really excited about that conversation at Smart Spaces. Okay. So, what we want to get into now is, and I'm already seeing some questions come through, which is fantastic because after we talk about the Property Innovation Awards, we are going to be taking some questions from the audience. So, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the questions tab. I'm seeing a couple in there now. So, Kristen, we are very excited together to announce the winners of our initial Property Innovation Awards, sponsored by MyQ LiftMaster Connected Property Solutions. So, thank you to them for sponsoring this program. We're very excited to talk about Aberley Market Point, Apartment Homes by H.H. Hunt, Regis Square, Peachtree Residential, and the residents at Sawmill Station, as well as Resort World Genting. So please, Kristen, why don't you walk us through, we're going to learn a little bit more about each of these properties, what their deployment was and the results that they're seeing and why they were really chosen for these awards. So over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Jennifer. So we had a lot of different submissions come in, and we carefully evaluated each company, each potential winner. We were really looking at companies that had a big challenge in front of them, one that they needed to innovate in order to solve. We were also looking that they had some solid results from the changes that they made. So really having some of those metrics to drive home how effective what they did actually was. One of the companies that really stood out was Resort World, Las Vegas, from the Genting Group, which was acting in collaboration with Dormakaba and Alliance. They were facing a fairly large challenge. So they have something along the lines of 2,000 daily guests coming through and really needing to check into their suites, get keys in order to access the guest room, the elevator, different hotel amenities. They did have a mobile check-in solution that was app-based, but it required, of course, actually downloading that app, enrolling in the loyalty program, and it used a Bluetooth for that mobile key, which hadn't been quite as reliable as they would like. Um, so they were looking for a change. They used a new solution built on Alliance Mobile Check-in Suite, as well as Dormakaba's ambient access management platform, to do this fully virtual check-in experience that did not require that the guest actually download that app. So they were able to use actually their iPhone in this case to have this the Apple Wallet, have an NFC key that they can actually tap their iPhone against the guest room door to access the elevator, to access different hotel amenities. After they deployed this solution, they found that mobile check-in rates increased significantly, something along the lines of 800 to 1,400 fewer guests actually needing to check in at the front desk per day. So that really improved wait time and satisfaction, not just for those who are using the mobile check-in process, but also for those who are still waiting in line. So much less competition. NFC, of course, generally more reliable than the Bluetooth keys. So there were fewer incidents where people weren't actually able to use their phones. Um, and as well, the current solution supports iPhone. Around 90% of their guests use Apple, preferably. However, they are planning on rolling out support to Android in the future.
All right, great example of, especially when I think about 800 to 14 fewer guests needing to check in at the front desk, what that means to operations and the front desk operations, and how appreciated I'm sure that was, and some real labor savings perhaps there. Okay, who's next?
Yes, so next we are going to be looking at the residences at Salma Station, accompanied by RPM Living. So Salma Station was looking to reduce overall reliance on physical keys and fobs, improve the remote management capabilities for their staff, as well as more easily control access to different areas of the property. They were also looking to create entry logs of who accessed which area of the property and when in order to reduce overall risk and liability. Sawmill Station deployed MyQ Community by LiftMaster, um, as well as smart video intercoms, smart locks, and cloud-based access control. So the new solution they've rolled out includes this centralized dashboard where staff are able to instantly issue or revoke credentials. It includes video logs and access histories, both for who is coming in and out of residential units, as well as who is coming in and out of amenity areas, really allowing residents to more easily get around the property and grant guest entry. By shifting to this cloud-based system, the residences at Salma Station were able to minimize hardware costs, eliminate the need for on-site servers. The remote management capabilities were able to lower labor costs as well, so no more needing to kind of manually grant some of this access, improving overall efficiency of the employees and increasing productivity, both of the central office staff as well as maintenance. Fewer residents, as a result, were locked out of their units, the building, or the amenity areas.
Okay, fantastic. Nobody likes to be locked out of their buildings. And also that log of who is entering resident units. I know that might sound creepy. It's not about monitoring the residents themselves, but especially for maintenance, right? And actually giving the resident better confidence and an understanding and almost accountability too of when let's say a maintenance person or somebody from the property might have to enter a unit, and so kind of giving that accountability, I think is really interesting and important.
Yeah, so a resident is able to see that a maintenance worker entered their unit at such and such a time and then left at such and such a time. So they have
Exactly.
a pretty good accountability. Conversely, the property is able to see that such and such a resident entered an amenity area at such and such a time. So in the case that an incident might occur, they would have an idea of who was actually present.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Tell us about Peachtree and why they stood out.
Yes, Peachtree Residences, they are a luxury high-rise that have been in business for a little while. They were facing challenges with inconsistent Wi-Fi coverage throughout the building. Residents were complaining about the network reliability, having issues connecting. They did not have, unfortunately, the insights into what exactly was going on with their network. So they didn't have the analytics capabilities and the onboarding process for new residents in order to actually get authenticated with the bulk network and onto the Wi-Fi was a bit outdated, so requiring some manual effort. Um, PhD residences, in order to resolve this, they deployed Zentro's Bliss solution, a connectivity platform, as well as Calix hardware and cloud-based tools. So the property now has symmetrical gigabit speeds. They were able to roll out in-unit access points for their residents. There's consistent Wi-Fi coverage now across the entire property. The cloud platform has centralized device management as well as ongoing technical support. Building staff are now able to use the platform to have real-time network insights, as well as knowing what is actually going on with specific devices. As a result, they saw a big improvement in resident satisfaction. There's been a very sharp drop as well in any complaints around connectivity and need for support requests. Um, Onboarding process for new residents sped up fairly dramatically, and they now have a lot of better insight for property staff when it comes to what's going on with the network. Peachtree is now able to market as well its internet and Wi-Fi as a premium amenity.
I love this example of really focusing on the internet and the network. Our research across all residents regarding regardless of housing, really shows year by year a solid uptick of access to gigabit speeds. That's really becoming expected. And so, seeing a property really invest in that network foundation, to then build on top of. Looks like they saw great results.
Yes, and I believe, Jennifer, the last time we looked at the numbers, it was something along the lines of 20%, or maybe a little bit more than 20% now, of US internet households actually have gigabit speeds. So it's certainly far, far above where it was just a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's learn about Regis Square.
Yes, Regis Square was another existing property. They had a challenge where they were dealing with fragmented and disconnected property systems, leading to this inconsistent resident experience. They faced as well higher than desired operational costs, and their staff were having to manually complete certain tasks that they believe they can automate. In order to get around these, Regis Square deployed Della OS, which incorporated a very deep integration with Yardi in order to automate away some of these tasks. The new solution has an automated resident onboarding process, chat-based maintenance requests. They're able to have some energy automation, which we touched on a little bit earlier, actually using automation and sensors. Residents now have instant access to amenities, and property staff have these real-time dashboards and are able to do building-wide system updates. They found that since they deployed these solutions, occupancy rose to 100% in less than a year. The energy use in vacant units dropped fairly dramatically. Maintenance completion and response times were able to accelerate, and staff efficiency overall improved. One of the biggest advantages for residents is that they are able to get access to amenities in seconds instead of hours, as the previous process had. And they were able to largely eliminate manual processes and paper handoffs.
Pretty incredible. It can't get much better than 100% occupancy, 100% occupancy, right? Maybe just a mention, Kristen, around that integration with Yardi and the integration with the property management systems generally. I mean, we hear that when we survey, so we don't just talk to residents, right? We talk to properties, property management, survey them even, and definitely the integration with the PMS system is pretty critical. Can you maybe flesh that out a little bit more about how what you hear from properties on that feature?
Sure. I've heard a lot from properties saying that that is the number one thing that they look for when they're looking for a partner to help them with their technology strategies. So that's certainly something that's very much in demand. Something else that I've heard from owners and operators is that there is a lot of uncertainty what a potential partner might mean when it comes to integration. There are, of course, levels of integration. The most basic level is a partner, a tech vendor might have a spreadsheet that they're able to generate, and that spreadsheet just gets uploaded by a manual process, either by a staff member or some sort of an email tool. At the other end, you have this fairly deep integration, which happens automatically. It's actually part of the ongoing workflow, able to work by API or similar methods. So there's, I say, a lot of variation. What owners and operators are typically looking for is something that's able to automate away as many manual tasks as possible, something that preferably just works for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't add more jobs in trying to add technology to help. Sometimes actually creates more jobs to be done, right? So those automations and integrations really important. Okay, love to spend some time learning about Aberley Market Point, our last award winner here that we want to highlight, and then we'll take questions.
Yes, Aberley Market Point is one of a number of different properties by H.H. Hunt. So H.H. Hunt was actually looking for, across its portfolio, a solution that would improve management of vacant units, have integration with property management software, have integration with the common access control solutions that they were using, as well as improve HVAC analytics across its portfolio. Aberley Market Point, of course, is one of their flagship properties, an award winner in different senses for resident satisfaction. So they were especially looking for a solution that worked very well with it. H.H. Hunt installed ADT multifamily smart home technology. So taking its kind of integrated approach towards smart thermostat and smart panels with smart door locks, really across its entire portfolio. So having something that worked well and it could scale across all of these different properties. Um, H Hunt experienced this very significant energy savings after deploying the solution, especially for vacant units, had overall faster maintenance times as maintenance workers were able to get into these units using the smart door locks. And overall, they had a lot of improvements to their daily efficiencies.
Yeah, interesting on this one about the portfolio-wide deployment. Another thing that we hear for sure in the research is that for many properties, especially leading properties and ownership groups and management companies, this isn't their first go at deploying technologies. They've been doing trials or limited deployments at different properties in different places, but that also gets a little hairy over time, and having similar deployment of technology across a wider, at least portion of their portfolio can help in reducing that kind of vendor fragmentation. So interesting to see this one take more of a portfolio approach.
Yes, I'd say a key goal we've been hearing from owners and operators is to reduce this vendor fragmentation. They're also really looking for partners that can scale with them to meet their needs.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take some time and take some questions. The first one actually relates to these Innovation Property Awards. Kristen, can you spend some time talking about how we came up with the ratings, right? So what did we look at in evaluating the nominations that came in? And again, thank you so much to everybody who nominated a property. So what did we look at, and how did we end up ranking these properties?
Sure. So we were looking at a number of different factors. We were looking at, I'd say, the degree of challenge that a company was facing. So how, as well, innovative was the solution that they were deploying to meet some of these challenges. We were also looking at how solid the results were and metrics were compared to how the challenge they were facing kind of operated or worked. So a very solid, measurable challenge, I would say, would be what was going on for Resort World Genting, where they had that massive influx of daily guests that they were needing to manage. Having a software solution scale up to meet that massive influx, and then be able to roll out this solution to all of these different consumer devices as well as devices throughout the entire property.
Yeah, fantastic. And I got some insight into Kristen Sheet, who led the evaluation process for us at Parks Associates, and the various values that each property got, totaling into a sum in their use, and also especially the results, that we were really able to see there. So great work. Thank you for taking that on. And these were the five that really rose to the top. Okay, great question. Another question, how are tariffs impacting PropTech? So much as software as a service, but there, of course, is hardware deployment too. Thanks for the question, and something I was talking about earlier. I'm going to give a couple of thoughts, and Kristen, if you have any other thoughts to add as well. So far, I think it's actually been relatively limited. When we were looking at putting our market estimates together earlier this year, really for the smart home market as a whole. We were trying to figure out, and project crystal ball, right, what the impact of tariffs would be. And I think we put, in general, assumed some price increases of between like 10 and 15%. And in talking to some of the manufacturers of technology products that do go into multifamily buildings, one briefing is coming to mind in particular about a company that does quite a bit on building management systems, energy, especially management systems for big buildings. They've really seen a relatively small impact so far. And the impact on their pricing through for their components and selling through to their customers has been about 5 to 8% rise in pricing. So generally not enough to impact demand for the technologies, but definitely there's a price increase there. And if anything, I'd say also just the uncertainty in the market earlier, and what's going to happen and from what market and on what segments of the market and who's getting exclusions or side deals, and it does affect this part of the economy and not this market. It's been a lot of kind of wait and see, and I think we're kind of back to business as normal, where some people were making some conservative estimates earlier in the year, and just bottom hasn't dropped out or anything, but kind of limited response. So that's my take. I don't know, Kristen, if you have thoughts to add to that.
Sure. A few additional thoughts. We did see earlier in the year a number of companies were actually acting to stockpile as much as they could when prices were relatively low,
Mm-hmm.
also working to change their supply chains in order to get the lowest possible cost. Um, Larger organizations were, of course, more successful in that. We've also seen the implementation of the full cost of tariffs be delayed a number of times. So there is a question that when these do kick in, what exactly will that impact be? We haven't seen that quite yet.
Right, exactly. So it might just be a not yet, you know. Um, okay, great question. I also saw somebody raise their hand, and in this format, I'm not able to call on you. So if you raised your hand, and you actually had a question, we'd very much welcome that, and you can put those questions right into the question tab. So sorry if you were trying to chime in, which we love, but I can't really like call on you. So I need you to put your thoughts into the questions or the chat. And let me just make sure that I'm not missing anything from anybody. I don't think so. Okay. So if you have any additional questions, go ahead and add them. In the meantime, Kristen, why don't you go ahead and give us a preview into what you're seeing in assistive technologies for older adults, because this is something that we're getting into at Smart Spaces that I'm really interested to hear from the panelists, the industry speakers that we have that are out there, developing technologies for the senior living space, and deploying and working in that market right now. So kind of in anticipation of that session, what is your research telling us?
Sure. So we actually are in the middle of authoring a new study on this very topic, really taking a look at how older adults, as well as family caregivers, are thinking about assistive technologies. What has been the experience that people are having? What are some of their demands? If we could move to the next slide, I do have a few, I'd say, key findings from some of our ongoing research. We have seen, I'd say, a more nuanced approach when it comes to assistive technologies, maybe than in the past, where we do see adoption of assistive technologies really increasing as the cared for individual requires more and more assistance in other measures. So it is they are actually being used as replacements to a certain degree for more intensive forms of care. Um, Looking at how folks are actually learning about some of these different types of solutions, we do see that word of mouth, care providers and influencers, so actual people, human beings, are really the biggest sources of knowledge when it comes to some of these things. So context is highly important for these solutions, knowing how they work, how it will actually look like and run kind of between the individual, maybe their loved one, other folks in this kind of space. We found very promisingly that a satisfaction for assistive technologies among family caregivers is really high. So a very high NPS for some of these solutions. I believe the lowest NPS tested was actually an 18, highest in the 40s. Um, we do expect as well that demand for assistive technologies is going to increase as especially baby boomers approach older age. So they are very tech forward as a generation, much more likely to actually use some of these solutions than maybe prior generations are. If we can move to the next slide. Yes, one of the findings I would say that we have in this more recent research is that folks, as they move along this continuum of independence, the number of technology solutions that they have adopted actually increases. So the folks who are, I'd say, the largest group most likely to use some of these solutions are going to be in the first bucket, living independently without assistance, or living independently but need some assistance. As we go alongside this continuum, you will notice that the folks who have one solution, those will increase, but especially the folks who have multiple will increase more. Apologies. Dry air here in Dallas.
No worries.
I
Okay.
mentioned earlier that word of mouth is the leading discovery method when it comes to assistive technologies. Something around half of family caregivers report learning about these solutions from either a personal contact they have, family, friend, acquaintance, or from doctors or care providers. When we try to look at what the second largest bucket is, advertising really floats up. This includes social media. So to a certain degree that the influencers are in here, as well as organizations such as the AARP. That makes up really the next largest bucket. Um, all the way down here, we see the solutions provider themselves, um, and the search engines kind of at number three. You might have noticed if you're already searching this, already serving this space, that search engines are somewhat unreliable at surfacing kind of the needed solutions. So they are much more likely to return results on solutions that have kind of had a lot of staying power in this market. So something like a PERS or a medical alert solution. Um, One of the big, I'd say, confounding factors is how common ChatGPT or AI search tools have become. So those are rising through the ranks. I think more likely to return some of that more contextual result. It's just making sure that you're in that search result in the first place. Looking at satisfaction with this assistive living technologies, that's a tongue twister. We do see that overall consumers have fairly high levels of reported satisfaction for these as measured by net promoter scores. The app on the smartphone, so think maybe a Life 365 solution, having really the most satisfaction of everything tested. PERS, so the traditional medical alert solution, which has been undergoing quite a bit of evolution in the last few years, coming in at number two. Smart home devices and smartwatch, almost respectively at number three, so really tied for that third place, and then kind of going down with these other solutions. But generally, these are doing what people want them to, and they're telling other folks about them.
So, excited to hear about thinking about these as almost a tech amenity or a tech package, for senior living then. What are we finding in our research there?
Yes, so we are finding that a good number of seniors are actually very interested in these types of solutions, especially when we have them really marketed or packaged up as a tech amenity for them. So we tested among our survey respondents the level of interest in a hypothetical smart amenity package. So including a bundle of devices and services, so a video doorbell, smart door locks, smart thermostat, a smart stove sensor with auto off in the event that the stove burner is forgotten, faller incident detection, the ability to automatically call for help if needed, wireless sensors that might be able to detect if someone is moving or active in the home. What we found that breaking this down by actual generation, age group, younger consumers are highly interested in this. So this actually peaks among those who are maybe 35 to 44 years old. So people who are more likely to have their home, they're more likely to have kids running around their home. They see the value in this for themselves. It does go down somewhat among older generations, but still fairly high. When we look at those who are 65 plus, where we see the strongest correlation is really in tech affinity. So those who are more tech forward, especially those who are in that innovator or early adopter segment, they really look forward, they engage with technology, they have the highest degree of demand. So around 45% or so reporting that they're interested in this type of solution. It goes down a little bit for early majority, so falling down to about a third instead of almost half, and then kind of down from there. So certainly there is a demand, I would say, for these types of solutions as an actual amenity, either with a 55 plus community or maybe a retirement community as well.
Yeah, interesting. And this piggybacks on some of our other research showing that, sometimes people discount seniors as if they're not already using smartphones and already using technology in their lives, which of course they are. Now there's a big difference between, say, the 65 to 75 group and the 75 to 80 group, and then the 80 plus group, right, and their needs and that acuity of need. But seniors, for instance, in the energy management space, you mentioned earlier that they are among the most likely to take energy saving actions today. They're on it, right? They are turning off, they're setting back their thermostat manually if they have to. They're turning off lights in every room, even if it's relatively manual, and really watching those bills. And have historically, they're also very practical buyers. And so again, kind of across all housing segments, multifamily, single family, et cetera, seniors have actually caught up with younger consumers in smart thermostat ownership, which is pretty incredible because seniors almost never, have the same adoption rates of technology of younger consumers. And so that shows like there's this real practical value that I get, and that seniors are starting to understand and be attracted to. So the smart thermostat here being really key, and then those safety factors like smart stove sensor with auto off, which not surprised that this peaks among those with kids too, because that's highly of interest to keep my kids under control and not burn my house down. So great research. Thank you for sharing that, Kristen. I want to make a last call here as we close out that, again, we look forward to seeing these properties and hearing from these properties that are receiving awards, to hearing from our keynotes and our sponsors that are all coming out to Smart Spaces in Dallas, September 16th to 17th. If you haven't already registered, you can use this QR code to view the agenda and then register. The hotel block is closing Monday, August 25th. So you do want to book your room to get into that room block. It is also great fun to catch up with you all, and I'm so excited to see many of the connections that we've made over the past several years covering this market, hearing how this year has gone for you, understanding the challenges that are right in front of you, hopefully being able to help where we can, and just learning from you as well. So can't wait. Looking forward to seeing you in Dallas next month. Please register if you're interested in sponsoring that event, in purchasing any research, or in speaking. I think our speaker sheet is almost full for Smart Spaces, but there may be 1 or 2 slots open. If you're still interested in speaking, you can reach out to Ashton, Jason, and Mindy Sue. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks, Kristen. Thank you as well for sharing your research.
Thanks, Jennifer.
All right. Thank you all.